I'm Yannick Belzil. I'm the narrative designer on TMNT Shredder's Revenge, and you're listening to the Scene World podcast.
Hello,
Hi,
welcome to the Steam World podcast. This is
Remute, and
yeah,
this is,
Jörg, Navcom.
and we're here
Yes,
for you.
again.
Yeah.
In a minute, I will interview Manu Segura, one of the famous people from Spain, talking to me about the history of the game industry and its beginnings in Spain and the games he is currently developing and his role in the game industry and so on. Hours from knowledge and history and stories. So hope you look forward to that. But before that, we have some news.
Oh yeah, let's go.
And yeah, and one of those news is that now we kicked off our planning phase for Gamescom 2023, and I will be present again, and Dennis too.
Yeah, I will there too, and we are just in the middle of our planning phase, and yeah, hope to see you
First
there.
time,
Hope to see you there.
first time for you.
Yeah, it's my first time at Gamescom at all, and I'm looking very forward.
Oh, you will love it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah. So if you want to visit Remute or me or the SteamWorld staff, come to the SteamWorld booth at the end of August in the family and friends area. That's normally hall 10.2. And in the family and friends area, there's the retro area, and there we will have our booth. Yeah, and we try to bring some variety to the booth this time. So Remute's music, our disc mag, and we will also have Eva Ramona Rohleder, who will be there with her point and click adventure that's coming. A Twisted Tale with a sparkle of retro.
An amazing 2D point-and-click adventure. Beautiful.
We interviewed her. Yeah, we interviewed her already last year for the podcast. So yeah, so we will have a bit of a mixed theme booth this time at Gamescom. So visit us and be amazed.
See you there.
See you
Cool.
there. Yeah. And also, some other news is that in May, there was a demo released by THQ Nordic for the Alone in the Dark reboot. And that was called Grace in the Dark Prologue. And the game is set as a release date for October 25th, 2023, though still this year. And as I said, it's a reboot of the PC original from 1992.
Yeah, I think this is the, let's say, this is the first Resident Evil-like game that was ever made, and it's pretty interesting to see this getting remaked in the. I think it's probably in the style of the Resident Evil remakes, and this makes it a very interesting release. So cool.
And also, Alone in the Dark was also ported to the Amiga back in the day.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Just so you know.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, this is not the only game that was, well, worked on, but also on June 2nd, Street Fighter 6 has been released.
Ah, yeah.
So
Already
never-
part 6.
never
It never
dying.
ends. It never ends.
Exactly. Never dying franchise.
Yeah.
You had the same thought as I had. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yes. And there was another thing. There was actually a scandal surrounding Place Entertainment for their Evercade release of Duke Nukem 3D. obviously the guy who did the box art for the Evercade release used AI.
Okay, so yeah, I think many people are using AI, but I think it should be labeled as AI.
And that was a scandal. It wasn't labeled. So Place Entertainment issued a press release, a statement about that. And Evercade retweeted that on Twitter.
Okay.
So yeah, so they will redo the artwork and somebody else will get the job, obviously. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've read some feedback where people said like, I liked the AI-driven art more. You should have kept it anyways.
Yeah, it's a very tough question how to handle stuff like this, and I think there will be many discussions in the future. Probably not the first scandal about this.
I mean,
not the only scandal. I mean, just the first.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, there are amazing results that AI can give, even in the area of music where you are an expert.
Yeah,
I mean, just today, YouTube suggested to me Ava Max and Charlie XCX Pling Pling.
Yeah.
That is also a mix of Axel F and Crazy Frog with AI-based lyrics. And
I think AI can do everything.
So
bad music and good music.
Yeah. So and people were commenting on it like, is this real? Is this unreleased? Not many understood that this music piece doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Without AI.
It's amazing. I think it's a pretty fun topic, and
it
there
went
will be
viral.
many discussions in the future.
It went viral, totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also another news is Plush won the one-file demo competition at the X 2023 party.
Wow, cool.
And the demo is called White Lines, and it's really interesting because it's using solely white lines to generate pictures on the fly.
Nice.
Super interesting.
Gotta watch it. Amazing. Cool.
Yes. Yeah. Well, did you listen, by the way, to the AI founded Pling Pling music
Not
piece,
yet,
or not yet?
Not yet. I think I will check it out, and yeah.
Who knows? Perhaps some of your music will be AI based in the future as well. For retro consoles, not very likely, right?
Maybe I will cooperate with an AI. Or with Skynet, probably. Who knows?
Dennis Kaimani from the future is coming.
Yeah. And I will start a war with music.
A war about music. Hey.
Yeah. Why not? Cool. So that's some interesting news today. Nice.
Especially since I pulled it out of something. Amazing. Yeah, nice. Well, so let's jump to Spain and hear all about the beginnings of the Spanish developer scene for computer games, I would say, right?
Enjoy.
Yeah, bye. So, today we have another interview and another guest, and this time it's Manu Segura. Hello, Manu. Welcome.
Oh. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, you have been a guest before on the Gamescom panel, actually, 2 years ago. So, where you showed one of your games that you actually converted to the Mega Drive, which we will talk about later. But also, we want to talk about the history of game developing and its scene in Spain.
Okay, that's a huge topic. I will do my best.
Right.
I can tell you about my perspective, what I've lived, what I've seen.
Awesome.
this what have been affecting to me. I'm starting to apologize already because I'm sure that I will be leaving a lot of people. Please don't get mad at me if I don't mention you. It's just as the scene here in Spain is quite big. But I've lived my part, let's say, and I can talk about that. Oh, I hope it's okay. Enough.
I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I have the feeling as a non-Spanish speaker that outside of Spain, we are not really much aware about the scale of the Spanish scene from that perspective.
It could be a language barrier problem, maybe, because normally we communicate or we have connections among Twitter. Basically, we are connected on our accounts, and basically we tweet in Spanish, and it's rare that you get English tweets or foreign languages tweets, and that might affect us a little bit, losing a connection with the rest of Europe or the rest of the world.
Well, that is why we have this interview today.
Oh,
yes,
what a responsibility.
Awesome, yeah. Well, so let's start with the beginning. How did you actually get in touch with computers?
So I'm a guy from the 80s. I was a kid in the 80s. I was born in 1975. That means that in the year 85, I was 10 years old. I think it was 85, 86 when I got my first contact with computers. You can imagine it was 8-bit computers that we had here in Spain. So basically we had two of them were quite popular. I would say it was the ZX Spectrum and the Amstrad CPC, the two big beasts, let's say. And there was a residual less common computers like the Commodore 64 and the MSX, but I've seen the 4 of them when I was young. By the way, this is pretty curious that after we got in touch when we were older and we started communicating with all the rest of the people here in Spain with modern computers and the easiness of communication that we have today, it looks like how common was a computer. It was depending on the area that you are living, on the region of Spain. It can be different. Also in 16-bit machines like Mega Drive and Super Nintendo. It was also, or even on the previous generation of machines, the Master System or the Nintendo NES systems. It was a bit depending on the region, how successful was it, and especially what did your friends had, which machine did your friends have. So it was like a little bit like contagious, no? You get infected by how popular was a machine at school, for example. What computers were or consoles were you finding on your friends on school? In my case, I think it was 1986. One of my first contact with video games, it was my cousin's computer, that it was a ZX Spectrum 48K. He showed me a couple of games that, by the way, afterwards I managed to get them. They're lying back there.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I just wanted to have them because I felt something special about those games, my first contact. I remember that couple of games from the ZX Spectrum, and I also remember some arcades coin-ops, like the one you've got behind you. I especially remember the feeling when I saw for the first time the game Terra Cresta from Nichibutsu, 1985. It was like I was completely, my eyes were wide open, like, what am I seeing? This is all these sounds, these colors, this action. For me, it was like a punch in my head. And I'm 47 years old now, and I didn't recover yet from that punch that I've got. Yeah, just after seeing this Terra Cresta coin-op, I also discovered some other coin-ops around me. Every one of them was around this area. I mean, in year based, like 85, 86. That's where it started. Then I started asking my parents for a computer like my cousin had. And I also managed to get another ZX Spectrum. In that case, it was a 128K, the superior model, just because of the age, because he had the computer a bit earlier than me. And then I got this other computer, and I started making connections with my friends at school, basically people at school that had a similar computer. I also had some contact with other in machines, as I told you before, especially with the Amstrad CPC, that it was also very common here. I had a neighbor. We are close friends. We still are close friends, like almost like brothers, because we grew up together. And he had an Amstrad CPC, so I kind of got in touch with the two machines. Having myself the Spectrum, I just had to go downstairs to his house to get in touch with the Amstrad one. That was my first touch with computers.
Interesting.
And
now
also,
here's a question. I once interviewed Paco Portello. You know, he is a pioneer in computer games because he created the first game with cutscenes before there was this phrase coined cutscene with Bugaboo the Flea in '83. And he mentioned even the Dragon 32 computers were big in Spain. I remember that because we had a translator sitting there next to him, and he was like, "Why are we talking about dragons now?" And he was like, "Yeah, but not the animal, the computer."
yeah.
So would you agree that the Dragon 32 computer was known in Spain, or is that not in the region, as you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, that it depends on the region?
I have the feeling that it's not really because of the region. It was maybe because of the age. Because if Bugaboo was programmed in the '83, there was maybe just one generation before that. It was one generation before me too. I never saw a Dragon computer. I heard about them, not back in time, but recently, in the recent years, when you've got much more access to information nowadays. So I was not really aware back in time, back in the '80s, that the Dragon was a popular computer in Spain, but maybe it was just a few years before. That's what I imagine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's my feeling.
Interesting, yeah.
I heard also about people having the previous generation of the Spectrum, the ZX81, but that's only a subtle feeling in my mind. I didn't really saw it in person back in the '80s when everything started for me.
And I guess back then you didn't know that you had a Spanish famous invention there in the history of video games. I guess you'll realize that all long time after, when you actually had internet access and stuff, right? You didn't know back then that about the history of your country and what's going on regarding game development from the historical point of view.
We had the feeling, that's not a feeling. We knew that most of the games that we played, at least, I don't know, maybe 60% of the games we played on the 8-bit computers, they were done and programmed and created here in Spain. So we really had quite a lot of programmers. We knew about the studios. We had a magazine that was called Micro Hobby. It was dedicated to the Spectrum, especially, and they had analysis. They have everything regarding the computers, and we knew there that from the people who draw the pictures on the cover art, from the musicians, programmers, graphic artists, everyone was Spanish. kind of around maybe 60% of the games, because the Spectrum was pretty popular here in Spain and also in the UK. There was quite a lot of games from UK, quite a lot of games from Spain, and if you ask the kid I was in the 80s, there was nothing more. Games from the UK, games from Spain. Maybe there was I don't know, a Belgian game, but I didn't really knew. So we knew, thanks to the magazines, that some of those games were also exported to the UK, and of course, mostly maybe 100% of them were also coming to Spain, but basically it was these two countries we were powerful on these games. But yes, we knew that developers, as I say, from the cover artist to the last guy in the production, they were Spanish. Yes, that we knew. Back in the moment.
Interesting. Yeah. And was Spain more tape driven, like dataset releases like the UK, or more disc driven like in USA or Germany?
You mean disc between tape?
Yes,
tape?
I mean in UK tapes were always cheaper. So people were like, why should I invest on a diskette release if I can get the dataset release for the ZX Spectrum or the C64 or other computers cheaper? Where here in Germany, everybody was like, datasets are so painfully slow. I would rather pay the extra money and get a faster loading experience of the game. And in America, only the early 80s were actually known for being famous for tape release. But in the middle of the 80s, nobody really looked at the tape release anymore.
Here, tape was very, very popular.
Okay, so similar to UK again.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was very similar to UK in that sense, and especially if we talk about Spectrum computer, because the Spectrum, I don't know if you've seen it before, probably yes, but there was a unit called +3 that it was diskette driven, but it was not very popular. It came on the late years of life. For the Spectrum, it was not very popular, but I have to say that diskette was much more popular in the Amstrad computers. I don't know if it came before or whatever, but for example, the Amstrad that my neighbor, my friend had, it was a diskette one. I think that there is also one detail. It's not. I don't think it's a small detail. I would say it's a huge detail that it was piracy. Here in Spain, piracy, it was very, very, it was really extended. It was rare to have original games. Most of your games were pirated or copied from your friend from whatever place. And in that case, it was much easier and much cheaper to get tapes for recording those games. In that tape, you could put 5-6 games for each side. It was much cheaper than diskettes, and it was more difficult to copy diskettes. But copying tapes, it was too easy.
I mean, copy protection on discs were a thing, you know. Yeah, definitely.
And you didn't also have, at least I didn't saw back in time, a double deck where you can transfer directly from one diskette to another. But it was common to have a double deck tape recorder where you can just press play on one, record on the other one, and you transfer data. Of course, most of those games were not working or not working properly, but you could take the risk because it was very cheap. It was very common.
Yes, I've once read that the ZX Spectrum was thrown for load errors, while the C64 dataset did not so much because Commodore stored the data digital, while the ZX Spectrum did it analog. I don't know if that is the real reason. I mean, I never really owned a Spectrum, but I remember I was once in UK visiting one of our staff members, and he wanted to show me a game on the Spectrum, and he had to load it like 3 times because the first 2 times always had load error. In between, I was like, oh my god, that's painful. So we waited like half an hour because the first 2 times it just stopped loading in between. And if the same thing happened on the Commodore 64, you would think perhaps your data set needs cleaning or a better adjustment for the reading speeds, you know.
And regarding this load error you get, you only discover, most of the times you just discover the tape didn't load properly at the end of the loading. So you spend, most of the times you spend anyway, all the minutes you need to load anyway, just to, oh my god, it didn't load, let's try to start again. That's maybe also related to piracy. That there is one story I heard from several people, so I hope it's probably true. That, for example, you talked about adjustment. This adjustment was done with a very small screwdriver that you put in a hole on the cassette itself, and you move the head up or down, aiming for a better sound quality for it. So the story I heard is that if you only use original games and you never ever touch the screw, everything loads correctly unless the tape is really damaged. But for the moment you start adjusting this azimuth screw for moving ahead because you are using pirated games, and then you are doomed. And your games, then you struggle all the time to load even original games or also your tapes that you recorded at your friend's house. I'm not very an expert on the Commodore 64, but you mentioned that they have digital storage. I have the feeling, we can check this maybe afterwards, but I have the feeling that in general, the Commodore 64, it was a more advanced machine than the Spectrum was, or other instruments. For example, it already had sprites by hardware. Everything in Commodore, in Amstrad or Spectrum, it had to be coded from zero with no hardware support, and the music was also more advanced. So maybe it was in general a more advanced.
Well, I always remember the ZX Spectrum, famous for its color clash. So yes. That was the main issue. But of course, now that I have more original tape games for the Z64, I run, of course, more into this head alignment issue that you mentioned, because I realized that some loading systems are more prone for misaligned heads or speeds of the motor and stuff. So nowadays I have like 2 data sets for different kind of loaders. So now, like, okay, I want to play Last Ninja 2. I know this game will be a pain to load, so I will use a special aligned data set. But but of course I know back in the 80s you wouldn't have a collection of data sets or a collection of spectrums for different purposes. You are happy enough if you could afford one system, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm starting from the Spectrum Plus 2. There were some models, and the data recorder, the cassette, was already integrated into the machine, so you could not plug. Well, you can always open it up and cut some cables or do some magic, but normally you had one machine. I've got one here if you want to see it. One machine with the cassette integrated to the whole computer. It was not easy to switch from different loaders, cassette loaders, because it was already integrated and there wasn't. Well.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's the pain of knowing more nowadays. You know, you want to get things better and perfect because now you know more than you did back then. If something didn't work back then, it was like, okay, bad luck, try a different game. But nowadays, at least for me, it's like, okay, I know what is wrong and I know I can work on it, and then
need to fix it.
Yeah, then you need to fix it because, and if you don't do it, nobody else will do it. So it's yeah.
But I understand that there is also a pleasure in fixing things.
Right.
There is, imagine you've got one game that it's not loading, but you want it to load, and the pleasure is to manage to get it running. Yeah. And then you say, "Oh, what a piece of shit of game!" you just power off in 15 seconds.
Oh, I had the same thing with Mean Steak. It's a horrible, not nice to enjoy game, but the music is good, and it has this horrible tape loader that almost always fails. And I actually bought a second copy because I thought like, okay, my copy is bad, but the second tape had the same loading problem. So I was like, okay, I have to use a different data set and realign the heads, And well, but here's the thing: you don't know if you didn't know it better back then. You had what you worked with, and that was it. And I mean, back then I guess you could have, if you had the original, call some helpline or something, but you don't have this option nowadays anymore. But here's the thing: if you say piracy was your main market for games, I wonder how did those Spanish developing companies survive? They must have been some sales at some point, some income.
Yes. Yeah, it was a very famous movement from the main distributor here in Spain. That, by the way, he is, because he's still alive, Paco. Regards from here, if you are seeing this. Paco Pastor was the name. He was in charge of the main distributor. And by the way, this guy, he was a singer in one famous band back in the 80s here in Spain. And he was in charge of this distribution, and he knew about piracy. And they made a movement that they started producing much cheaper games than before. So, for example, if you've had some games in these nice boxes costing 2,000 pesetas, because it was still the coin here in Spain back in the 80s, they moved to these very pretty famous cassettes back there that you can see the pink side, and they started to selling them at 875. And that was specially announced in every magazine. It was pretty popular, and looks like it contributed quite a lot to stop piracy. Not completely, but I think they managed to sell quite a lot of tapes, because tapes have always been a very cheap medium, let's say, even for the companies. So maybe it was cents to produce. Quite a lot of the money of the margin was just money for them as earnings, let's say, because tapes were cheap, and they made this movement to put the very, very low price, and it looks like they managed to stop the piracy at a certain extent, not completely, but quite.
So-called budget releases.
Sorry?
Budget releases, right?
No, we had also budget releases, but they were even cheaper. Okay. It was a normal releases, so they stopped making these big boxes, let's say. But they started producing normal cassettes. All the releases were at this jewel case, they're called.
Okay, I see.
They're pretty common.
Yeah. So the difference between the cost of having big boxes against normal jewel cases.
Yeah, this is a normal jewel case.
I see.
Famous pink side.
Interesting.
These were the ones that costed 875 pesetas.
Nice. Interesting. I don't know how it was in Spain, but I remember some tape and disc releases, especially from smaller publishers in USA and UK, they looked pretty cute. I remember a photocopied manual and a disc label not really aligned correctly on the tape, and it was actually, the title was actually printed on with a typewriter font. So it was really looking like somebody copied it.
But it wasn't.
It wasn't, no, because I got this 83 release. I think it was Beyond the Forbidden Forest from Cosme from 85, and it was still sealed when I got it. So I know it was not a pirate copies, but some games in the early 80s, they really were very cheaply produced.
Yeah, especially the first ones where those guys produced 50, 60 tapes, almost homebrew. It was maybe the start of the homebrew gaming, and they made themselves painting every copy, like made everything by hand. It was they were artisans, no?
Totally amazing. So we stopped at you saying they managed to slow down the piracy. So did then the Spanish game development scene revive or increase, or what happened next after that?
I would say that video games started to be even more popular than before because they were cheaper. People could buy more of them, and that activates the market. And here the market for the Spectrum, that it's a machine that I know the most. I'm sorry for the other guys that might have another computers, but probably the story was pretty similar. It was alive until 91. It was the latest games from Spectrum, or the 8-bits. They came around, 91, I would say. Then there was a lot of developers here in Spain producing games for 8-bit computers, and looks like the transition was not easy, and it kind of stopped here for the Spanish industry. Here we call it the golden era for the video game developing here in Spain. There is people who can discuss about that, but it's commonly known as the golden era of video game development here in Spain. And the transition from from the 8-bit to the 16-bit machines, not only consoles, but also computers like the Atari ST or the Commodore Amiga, they didn't succeed. I don't know which was the reason.
Okay.
They were stuck on the 8-bits, or I cannot tell you, but most of the Spanish production, most of that pushing, that most of that power that we had back here, it suddenly died. And there is some examples of games that were successful, Risky Woods, for example, that comes here now to my mind. But most of the companies didn't really manage to make the change. And well, can stop here. They are.
So when it stopped there, that means there must be more influx from outside of Spain, because otherwise, because I don't recall that Spain had something like a video game crash like in America. At least I've never heard of that.
Not really about video game usage, not really about video game coverage, let's say, but about production done here in Spain by Spanish companies, or our typical Spanish companies, that they were super powerful back in the 8-bit days. Didn't continue to the 16 bits. It was very, very few examples for that. So you can count them with one hand, maybe. The reasons, I don't know. I don't really know, but that happened.
And that made you realize you have to become a developer yourself at some point.
I already tried to be a developer back in the Spectrum days. So since I remember, I've got kind of a problem. If I enjoy something myself, I'm talking about myself now, I don't stop only consuming it. I need to produce it. Like, for example, I love music, then I have to play music. If I love comic books, then I have to draw comic books. Yeah, and I really liked video games. And I started trying to develop video games back in the 80s when I had my computer. So I remember when I told you before that I managed that my parents bought me a computer. Their budget was only for the computer, and we could not buy any game. So I spent weeks without nothing. The only thing I had was the manual for the computer with the basic instructions, basic language programming instructions, and some examples. And that's where I started basically. Copying the examples that was on the handbook of the computer. I also remember that with the guy who had the Amstrad, my neighbor, my friend, we made like stupid small jokes, very, very basic. It was half a game, half a cinematic, for it, so to say, but something stupid like a guy is walking and then finds something and falls to the floor, and you see, ha ha ha. That was all. But you need to program that, no? And it was like we were all the time pushing. Oh, now wait, I will program one joke for you, and then we programmed that, and then we switched sides. And then the other guy, who is now a programmer nowadays, by the way, too, we started also making this kind of stupid jokes. But it was our starting in programming. We here, as I mentioned before, the Spectrum was very popular, and I also mentioned one magazine. It was called Micro Hobby. The lifespan for this magazine was pretty large, and at certain point, they started to bring cassettes with demonstration of games, or after some time, full games also. They were offering full games. Some of them were quite nice. And I remember that in that magazine that I bought every single number of it. Unfortunately, I don't have them anymore. But yeah, that's another story for when we are sad and want to talk about sad things. How all my things when I was young were thrown to the trash bin. Okay, let's continue. I don't want to remember that story now.
Sure.
In that magazine, I found some graphic routines that you could write. And it was, I'm trying to remember, some years ago, I found them on one digital copy on the internet. I would like to get them back someday to check them again. But it was like some advanced graphic routines where you could automate some sprite handling, but we didn't have sprites on the Spectrum, and some graphic routines you could use for your games. And I remember we built a Dragon Ball game, a Dragon Ball fighting game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was 90% completed. I remember I programmed several stages where you could go for another enemy after an enemy. And last one, it was Piccolo. I don't know if you know about the Dragon Ball history, but
no. I totally skipped that.
Okay, totally skipped that. One very famous character in the Dragon Ball universe, and I wanted the sprite to be a bit bigger than usual.
Not Piccolo, not little.
Yeah. So the name is Piccolo, but he's not small. And I wanted to make it. It was going to be the final enemy of the game, and I wanted it to be a bit bigger than the rest. But I already had the limit of size on the previous one. So I remember I stopped. I don't know the reason. It's more than 30 years ago. I'm sorry. Trying to put this sprite with another piece of a new sprite over it to make it bigger. But if I could have managed to finish that part, the game would be completed now. Probably one of the first 1v1 Dragon Ball fighting games in history, and now it's on the trash bin too.
Many coders used sprite multiplexing for such tasks.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but in that case, it was not automated at all. I started programming it by hand. It was the most of the code that it was behind it was basic. Oops, sorry. But then you could speak with those routines that automated some sprite handling, graphic handling, because sprite is not fair to use the word sprite.
If you mention basic, it must have been pretty slow.
It was not fast. But you could play it. You could jump, kick, punch, duck, and move. It was not lightning fast, but you could make some combats. It would be great to go back in time with a time machine and get a copy and bring it today.
But then I guess then at some point you started learning assembler and made more professional games at some point.
Not really. I have to say that my background is not really programming. I've been always more on the art side of the games. This programming thing has come in the late days. I made some assembler back in school when I started learning about electronics, and we've got one year at school that learning electronics. The teacher gave us some instructions for the assembler communication to the microchip. I can't exactly remember which one was it, but anyway, it was. I understood particularly well that parts that it helped me to have a bigger knowledge about how things worked at very low level, but I didn't really develop it until much more later on.
That is why on your Tuxedo Games page you are called Pencil Biter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
If you see on my personal Twitter account, I say that I don't program. I draw code.
Okay. Yeah. It's just like composers. They are composing code for music.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, more or less, yes. I have not been. I am not a very good programmer, or it's not my specialty, let's say. But I am lucky enough to have some close friends who are really experienced on this, and they help me a lot. And they even sometimes bring me some pieces of code that I have to develop, or they're ready to use. But it's not been my specialty. No, I've been drawing all my life almost since I was a kid.
Pixelating.
Well, when I was a kid, 4 or 5 years old, I only had a pencil. I didn't have any pixels. but yeah, I always wanted to make games since I was a kid. Since I started with those jokes that we programmed, and later on this Dragon Ball fighting game that we tried, I always wanted to do games, to create games. But there was some years that I didn't create anything, basically because I didn't have knowledge. So I basically enjoyed games until I started having a computer, and I started bringing back my desire to create games again. I've been always a fan of shoot 'em ups, horizontal shoot 'em ups. I have somewhere there in my computer one shoot 'em up that I did with Game Maker, one of the first versions of Game Maker, and more or less can't remember the year exactly, but I made also game that I didn't. It was not a game. It was just a prototype of a game that 15 years later it was bring back to life as Coloco, the game that we created for the ZX Spectrum. I got that concept later on. I brought it back from the past. And I realized that I didn't really know how to code. But I got in contact in a forum with some programmers that it was like the perfect match back then. Programmer who needed a graphic artist, and I was able to draw, but I was not able to program anything with enough performance, let's say. And also in that gap in time, programming languages and how computers were built, they had a huge leap forward, and I didn't really know how to handle all that. But I managed to get this connection with some programmers, and that's how we started. I remember this guy he was very fond also of shoot 'em ups, and we started creating a shoot 'em up for a Nintendo DS when it was released back in the time. But then afterwards, he told me, okay, I'm going to create a Mega Drive game. And remember, I thought, oh, this guy's crazy. We lost him. It's been great, but we lost this guy. Okay, and then he made it. He made the damn Mega Drive game, and he got in contact with one. How to say? The company is not the name because it was everything homebrew games, so it was not commercial. But one, I would say, pretty famous brand, that it was called 1985 Alternative.
That is how I got to know you, actually.
Yes, that's actually today disappeared, but for a lot of years, it was a pretty known brand, and we released many games.
For the Game Boy, for example, also.
Yeah. Yes, for a lot of platforms. Game Boy, Game Boy Advanced, Spectrum also, Mega Drive. We made a lot of games. I did the cover art for several of them. I did graphic imagery for a lot of them. I made a lot of unreleased material that is sitting down on my computer. I learned there that not all the projects are coming to a reality.
You mentioned Game Maker. Was it Gary Kitchen's Game Maker, the famous Game Maker? Or was it a different Game Maker?
No, it was a Game Maker. The drag and drop, almost no code.
So it was the Gary Kitchen's Game Maker.
I'm not sure about the name, but I bet it was. Let me check it afterwards.
Because that's like, if anybody mentions Game Maker, they always talk about the famous Gary Kitchen's Game Maker. So I wonder if in Spain you had something different with the same name. You never know, you know.
No. It was already. I would say it was already internet times.
Okay.
The first internet years that everybody had internet already at home.
Okay, so not the
maybe.
Gary's Game Maker from the 80s. Okay, a newer program. No. Okay.
Yeah, this is maybe probably 2004.
Okay, good. Okay.
that it sounds modern, but it's 20 years ago.
Yeah, well then it's not from Gary Kitchen. Then it must be a different Game Maker then.
Yeah, I know that company who made the Game Maker, it was later bought by Yo-Yo Games, that they are making the actual Game Maker versions. But it was a previous. I used the versions previous to that one. It was also becoming very famous.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the thing. A lot of things from the 80s had main very general names like Game Maker, and then you have something like a different Game Maker.
Yeah,
So that's a big
Yeah,
issue
very true.
there. Yeah.
But it was a great name anyway. Do you want to make games? You have the game maker, everything matched. The problem was when world came with a lot of things, a lot of products, and you started needing different names, then you cannot rely on those very simple names because they are probably already used easily.
Why did this group dissolve? The Alternativo, what was it, 1985 or
1985 Alternativo? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I said
That's
it's
a
wrong
good
way
question.
around. Okay.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. That's a good question. Why did it disappear? The thing is that the guy who ran, the guy who was 1985 Alternative, he was coming and going easily. So he spent 3-4 months working 100% on that project, and then he disappears for a year. He came back, and he disappeared again. So it was like, okay, we cannot work like this. And he finally disappeared for a long time.
Wow.
And, well,
okay, that's pretty difficult then to work with such a person. I see. Yeah. Especially if he is the organizer of the project.
Exactly.
You know. So that means at some point you switched to work for Tuxedo Games, right?
Yeah, to be honest, the people here who are at Tuxedo Games, we are the leftovers of 1985 Alternativo, basically the survivors, let's say, because it was a lot of years since we started. At the beginning, this maybe was 2007, and we still work together. And we are friends, and we've done strong bonds between ourselves. So this guy disappeared. It was very difficult for us to get over that because he had the contacts, he had kind of everything. No? And for example, we had I don't know if you heard about this World Cup game that we created for the Mega Drive with a Wi-Fi connection and everything. So this
I don't know the details. I don't know about the Wi-Fi connection, but I know about the game. Okay. You mentioned it briefly, but not about this Wi-Fi thing. But it sounds like a technical marvel for the Mega Drive.
The magic is happening on the cartridge. We've got a guy in the team who is a genius about hardware, about designing everything, and he came. So the story is that we had the idea to make this. Well, I would say it's a football game, but the football is only an excuse, because it's a Windjammers type of game. It's 1 versus 1, and the ball is like a disc. You can make special suits and everything. And then this guy came with this crazy cartridge, this crazy design for a cartridge for the Mega Drive, who included a Wi-Fi connection, the possibility to have a Wi-Fi connection. And we thought we have to make use of this because the world deserves to have this crazy idea on people's shelves. And then we thought about including the functionality for the penalty kicks. So you can play penalty kicks with someone. In fact, being at the Gamescom 2017, where we already had this game more or less built, or at least it was working. I played a game there against the musician who is living in the south of Spain, and we played with the Mega Drives connected. Then it was, oh my god, incredible.
Over the internet.
Over the internet, yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. Wow. So the thing is that we struggled to get this game on the market because we were relying on this guy who was, oh yeah, we are going to do the game, but then I disappeared, and then let's order some copies, and there was no copies, and we got fed of that. And the guys, the leftovers, let's say, of the projects, we decided that okay, let's do it ourselves. Then put some money from our pocket. We ordered it ourselves. we did it ourselves. We did just a few copies of the game, but we finally managed to release it somehow. It was a struggle, but it was
so
done.
The answer to the question if people can still buy a physical copy is no.
It's no. I'm sorry.
Oh, too bad. Too bad.
Yeah, it's no. It was very difficult to build. It was a nightmare in many senses of the word. We also lost contact of some of the people who developed the game, and well,
you know what I will say now? Crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Kickstarter, Indiegogo. No.
Yeah, let me think about that. But it's not very probable, to be honest.
I mean, look at other Mega Drive projects like Paprium. He made almost 1 million euro in the Kickstarter. Quenelle God from Watermelon Games. That was like, oh my god, almost 1 million in a Mega Drive Kickstarter game. So there must be some interest. If you can make the PR good enough.
The thing is that is going a bit beyond interest. Is we as I told you, we are not in contact anymore with some people of the team, and that's making some things a bit more difficult. But
difficult doesn't mean impossible, right?
Nothing is impossible, maybe except skipping death. No.
Ooh, yeah.
At least for the moment.
Right. In prepare to prepare for this interview, I actually was looking for interviews in English with you on YouTube, and I didn't find any. But I found a Spanish YouTube short where you were signing some Evercade collection card.
Yes.
And it if I understood correctly, it had a game from you on it.
Very true. It was the last game that it was produced by 1985 Alternativo. It was called the Chainbreak.
I see it on this page also. So you took it over to Tuxedo Games.
Yes. So we made a release with 1985 Alternativo. I don't really know how many copies it was because, as I told you, everything was mysterious and it was unbearable. But I know that there is people who has it, the Game Boy version for the game, labeled as 1995. But later on, we already had formed Tuxedo Games. We already had Coloco. I think it was almost finished. And then the guys from Blaze Entertainment, thanks to our friends Nape Games, who also helped us distributing the World Cup game, they came with the possibility to add the Chainbreak game to the Evercade cartridge. It was the Indie Heroes Collection 1, because recently it was released in number 2. So we really re-released it, and it was a fantastic experience.
People you see, that's the proof that you are a hero, you know.
Indie hero.
Indie hero.
And yeah, I have to say that not also Nape Games that are also quite close friends of us, but the people at Blaze Entertainment who are building the Evercade, they are great people who treated us great. Everything was so professional. It was a delight to work with them, and I would do that tomorrow if they ask me.
It's interesting how it developed, the Evercade being so successful and very good as a system. If you realize that they start with Blaze and their first Mega Drive copy release was so horrible. It was incredible. I mean, just as reference, I think it was 2005 when they came out with the first Mega Drive emulator copy. So like you had like an FPGA based Mega Drive, and it had a cartridge slot. And I remember I put in the German version of Dune 2 for the Mega Drive. One of the few games for the Mega Drive that actually got translated into German, and it said, sorry, this game is not for the it said, sorry, this game is for the PAL region. So it means it disconnects, it misdetected my German game as an American cartridge, which is like super weird, you know? I mean, it's a German cartridge, so it's obviously PAL from Europe and not from America. And actually, they released an update to the cartridge where later on it would automatically correct it, but the first release was super horrible. To this day, I don't understand who tested this hardware and why they released it with such a bug that even the region switch wouldn't work.
Well, I guess this is a difficult world to be in. Not in the video game industry, but my personal life, I also work with hardware releases, and launching a hardware release to the public is always hard, and people learns that's something great also, that you've got the patience and you've got what it has to take to learn, be patient, keep there, believe in your project, and you will succeed as they did. They had patience and they kept trying. They fixed, if I understood correctly, they later fixed the issue. But no hardware release is normally easy.
Yeah, the problem, however, is especially in those early days, like 2005, 2006, you don't really know what you are getting. It's not like you go to Amazon and they tell you this is hardware revision 2 with the fixed region lock issue. So you have to be lucky. Either you get an old stock from another customer who returned it, and then you run into the same issue, or you are lucky and they get the newer release. We never know, you know.
You probably didn't know back in the moment what the hell was happening. No, nowadays it's easier because communication flows much better. You can ask here or there, but back in the time it was like, who can I ask what's happening? And let's try to blow the cartridge.
I had internet, but I found this product so horrible I didn't give it a second chance. You know, I was like, okay. When I found on the internet there's a newer version, I'm like, no, I'm skipping that because the first revision was already horrible, you know. And interestingly, the hardest thing is to emulate, to rebuild the FPGA equivalents for the sound chip, the Yamaha. Most of those clone consoles sound horrible, like totally. I don't know. It sounds like the channels are twisted and the instruments are not correctly at all. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked. But I just wanted to reference that Place started out being pretty known for half-assed, super bad hardware products. And now you mention that they are super nice and super professional. So they really improved a lot.
That's what I can tell you. That's my experience. That was my experience. They treated us really like it was a very professional relationship. They sent us development cartridges for us to test the whole game, to debug everything, make sure that the game was working properly. Then when the game was launched, it's just a stupid detail, but for me it was great. They sent us a copy of the game and a copy on a console, and they sent us a little picture with also a copy of the game and a label saying your game was published on the Evercade. Thank you from everyone at Blaze Entertainment.
So that must feel pretty amazing to you, knowing that first you had 1985 Alternativo that was kind of a unstable experience and then moving to Tuxedo and then finally getting it published on a very successful game system, retro game system that was invented in the pandemic, in the start of the pandemic years, where everybody was like struggling because of chip shortage and so on. So it's like a total success story nobody ever thought would ever happen like that, you know?
Okay. Well,
so how does it feel for you?
The story with the Evercade still feels amazing because it's something that I have the perception that it's quite, of course, it's retro oriented, no, and that it tends to not to get old. For example, there's a community here in Spain. I got into a Telegram channel, especially dedicated to the Evercade, and there is people coming, new people coming every week, and they still talk about the cartridges, the whole story of the cartridges, and some people mentions about Indie Heroes collection, and they say, oh, the programmer is here, you can say hello, and that's happening regularly, and it's like amazing. It's a success story. I really feel very proud of that.
I mentioned it before the interview that our Peruvian graphic artist Victor, when I asked him like, can you listen to this sound file because I can't make out the name of the person that is interviewed, and he was like, yeah, that's Manu Segura, the very famous coder, a game developer from Spain. So within the Spanish-speaking community, you are a very known figure, at least what other people tell me. And you were like, nah, you are totally modest, and I'm not.
That's
I'm
very
not
true.
really.
It's how I feel. I don't feel like there is people here who likes to be more fame oriented, let's say, but I only want to make games. Try to make them fun, and people have fun playing our games, and that's what I want. For example, if someone is asking, oh, I need you to make some text, or please make some screenshots for a magazine or whatever, then I get lazy because what I want is to program and design levels and continue creating graphics. And of course, this is, it's a hobby for us. We are only making homebrew games, no? And our time is limited. And of course, I reserve some part of that time if it's needed to promotion, let's say. But I still think that the retro market, it's very small. So it's, except some exceptions that I know, all of us know, that they are really making a life from retro gaming development. Most there is not really market for making your business, your full.
Well, yeah. Well, there are some exceptions. For example, limited run games would be one exception, or analog, those hardware guys. But of course, I guess there's also different target group than the
limited run games, for example. They are distributing games that other people build, but I'm talking about building
your own games.
Your own games. There are exceptions, and I'm very happy to hear those success stories. But on the other hand, I think it's fine. I think it's fine. So I can tell you, I was lucky enough to work in the past drawing comic books when I was 20 something, and it was great to be able to make a life from one of your passions. But nowadays I prefer it to be a hobby, because it's not there is just, in my opinion, there is just a few people who really can do what they really like, and they are not tied of war. Your boss tells you to do. You have time restrictions. You need to have this done to, or the public, the general people ask you to do something. Okay, there is just a few people who can afford to do exactly what they want, and that's why I really like it to be kept as a hobby, so I can do whatever I really want, whenever I want. If there is maybe 1 week I can program or design levels or making a cover art for whatever game, maybe I can spend the whole week, and then in 3 weeks I can do nothing, and no one blames me.
Yeah, that's actually
because
good.
Yeah. The pressure is different. It's fun. It's fine to keep it also as a hobby and do whatever you want. Paprium too. Yeah, because for a lot of years and under the umbrella of 1985 Alternativo, we were creating. I was really deeply involved in the creation of a shoot 'em up game for the Mega Drive. It was called Antarex. It got pretty famous because we made some demos on some shows, and we were magazines. We released quite a lot of information, but the project itself was not looking good. Internally, we had the feeling that it was not going to be successful. And there was a lot of people asking, "Oh, do you know when Antarex is going to be released? How is the project going? How far are you in the project?" And you always are a bit elusive on those answers. And I thought to myself, "Oh, okay, so Antarex is not released, but also Paprium is not going to be released never. So we are we are on the same level, no?" And then,
but you didn't take money. You didn't take pre-order money,
no,
did you?
No,
okay,
never,
so
never.
see.
We were lucky enough for not taking anyone's money. We did that on purpose, but we were lucky that we never had to return anything. But then Paprium came to light, and then it was okay. So now I don't have the excuse of, but Paprium is also not on the streets. And then we got alone. Finally, we canceled the project, and luckily it was very, very promising back in the day. But we built the house from the ceiling, as we say here in Spain. I don't know if that is a direct translation, but we were learning too much. We tried. We aimed too high.
But I take it you didn't pre-order the game yourself. You didn't pre-order Paprium yourself. Okay.
No, I didn't. No. Because I really didn't trust the project, to be honest.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I didn't know it better, and I didn't know how many people were like me digging into the rabbit hole and finding out the phone number and calling it again and again and pestering the person. I don't know how many people did that. Probably not many. But I was like, well, if I don't try, nothing will happen. So
very true.
And honestly, calling to a prod nowadays, even 4 years ago, was cheap. So I was like, well, whatever, so that's how I see it. And I'm very proud that I didn't listen to all those people like saying like, it's like a lost case. Yeah.
People like me saying, it's not going to be released.
Yeah, I mean, at least I want my money back then, that's what I thought. Even if it's not released, return the money to me, yeah. That's
most people, I think, we had the feeling, I have to be honest, I also had the feeling that there was no game and there was also no money, that it was spent. That's maybe I'm talking too much now, but most people, I think we had that impression on there is no game and there is also no money to be returned.
Yeah, well,
I'm very happy to be wrong.
Well, the thing is, 2017, I was in touch with nobody in the Mega Drive scene, so I had no idea whatsoever. I trusted my friend that this game is going to be awesome, and you have to pre-order it better now than never. And I was like, okay, I was in a good financial status back then. I was like, okay, why not, Yep. And when the pandemic started, I was like, oh, now I would rather have the money, because how things started to skyrocket. Food prices, everything, and gosh,
life in general. Yes,
yeah. And it was like, okay, now I really would rather have the money than the product.
But now you can make a good profit if you sell the product.
That's actually true. I mean, I got
one
the
very
first
good thing
version.
that Paprium did is protecting its game from piracy and copies.
Well,
they managed to do very good.
Well, the thing is, it's evil and good at the same time, because the evil part is it caused some incompatibility with some early versions of the Mega Drive. Unfortunately, mine is in that list of not working, so I had to actually buy a Mega Drive 2, especially for running the game.
Does it pay off? Is it good enough?
Yes, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, yeah. And as you mentioned it, nowadays you can pay 500 euros for a copy on eBay and stuff. Yeah. But honestly,
now
I'm a collector.
I regret I didn't buy one. Not for reselling. I never resell anything. I've got a lot of stuff back there and there and there. I never sell anything, but now I regret not having a copy of Paprium. I think you can still pre-order them. I heard
you can.
This afternoon. They are going to be built some more units in the future.
I mean, the almost 1 million euros. No, was it euros? Yeah, 1 million euros backer money has to be put somewhere, And he's not only doing a Mega Drive release, but also a Sega Dreamcast release, a PC release, a Game Gear release. So it's going to be on many platforms, which is funny because Quinell always said, like, I will never do a PC release of Paprium. And then it was like, okay, perhaps there is some money to be made if I sell it on Steam and stuff, Now he's working on it. Yeah.
Well, everybody, as we spoke before, everybody has the right to learn and correct their mistakes.
Right. But he was very pissed and disappointed that no German press reported about his Kickstarter. And I said to him, in Germany, we can forgive, but we don't forget. So nobody of the German game press, nobody ever reported about the Kickstarter.
I will now share something with you and the audience that we hear that's coming to my mind as I grow older, and that's an intimate thought of mine. You started to think about getting old, and most of us are scared of death. We are afraid of dying, no? And I think that creating things in general is my way to fight. Like, maybe it's a bit stupid, but it's my way to fight against that. It's like, okay, I will die one day, but I will try to leave something done that overlives me. That's one explanation I try to find to my desire to create, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, to my desire of if I like music, then I do music. If I like comic books, then I draw comic books, or create video games, or create everything that I can to. I don't know if it's maybe if any psychoanalyst is looking at this interview. It'd be great to hear their opinion about this.
What does your family think, especially your daughter? I don't know if you have a son also, or.
No, I as far as I know, I only have this daughter.
Okay, I mean, what is your family thinking? Are they like, hey, my dad that is big in Spain regarding developing games for fun, or is it something that doesn't concern her? Or
yes, she's normally talking quite commonly about that, and she's, I would say, it's proud of that, and sometimes she even wants to be part of that. For example, in the ZX Spectrum game Coloco, that one, she designed a couple of levels.
Oh,
yeah,
wonderful.
She sometimes she tries to give a little bit of imprint in something that we do. I also love that fact that we can work together on something.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I would like her to be even more involved, but let's be patient because she's young. But yeah, she's creating an interest regarding that. For example, if I always buy the Retro Gamer magazine every 3 months, and she's always asking, "Oh, Dad, are you in this number of the magazine?"
Okay. Yeah.
Are you appearing? Yeah. Or for example, when the Coloco game was released, she was showing her colleagues at school, "Oh, my dad did this game.
Awesome.
Let's bring the computer, and do you want to play?"
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It would be great if she gets a bit more involved, because it's a great process, and sharing things with your family and your kids, your sons and daughters, doing this kind of creative thing together. It's feeling is awesome. To be honest, my wife is not that involved. She's not really interested, but she learned. She always know that this is important for me, and she. I said that she is not really involved, but I have to say that she plays a key role in all this, allowing me to be here with you, recording this video for all the audience. And also, if I have to, if I want to go to a show or something, and I spend the whole weekend or the whole Saturday, or we are, when, for example, I told you that we made ourselves a World Cup game that we paid. Then all the colleagues on the group came to my home, and we manually built the games together.
Awesome.
And she also helped us a little bit on that, and especially she makes my life easy in that regard. So even if she's not saying, "Oh, can you show me the game that you just did?" she's helping me in other ways, understanding how passionate am I creating in doing what we do. She makes my life easy on that. So
also, we have to take into account, as you mentioned at the beginning, grown up in the 80s, 90s. At least for me also, there was still this group of people thinking that this is all a waste of time, and video games especially. And to this day, whenever I do something on the computer, my father asks, like, "So did you play again?" I'm like, I'm not really sitting on the computer every time to just play. I'm doing interviews, like talking to you now. But for him, it's always like playing games. That's the whole purpose of sitting in front of a computer. So it's always like very, very general, and yeah, that's it for some people, unfortunately.
This is changing, but it will take time. As we, the generations that we were born with a computer in our hands, we were getting old and understanding that playing games is not wasting time. Because playing is not wasting time. Games, video games, or whatever play you want to do, this is not a waste of time. And I would like to be alive to see how video games are also treated as art, because they are art.
Well, but from the EU's perspective, the European Union, they are officially considered art and preservable by the EU since 2015. So that's actually something that changed.
Some fathers and grandfathers that they will never see that a game has to be directed, there is music, there is art, There is the animation, the gameplay building itself is an art to make a game fun, to keep interest. You need to draw things, and it's not only an art, it's sometimes the sum of a lot of arts into a single product. And I hope that I will be alive to see this treated with the respect it deserves.
Some would say it's already treated with respect. Some would argue it's not. It really depends who you ask. I remember I once did an interview with Chuck Peddle, who invented the first cheap microprocessors in the 70s, you know. And, he designed with this team the PET in 1977 for Commodore. And he told me when the PET was released, people were arguing that it will replace teachers in schools.
Yeah. Well.
Which he said is like bullshit. We will still need teachers, but now you have a computer and you can show things to your pupils, to the little kids, and not only in theory, but in simulations, you know. And this is how actually the first flight simulator was created, because students got interested in the university in physics classes, and then, well, somebody thought up like, hey, Bruce Ardwick, like, hey, I can learn programming next to be a pilot as a hobby, and this way he invented the first flight simulator for the Apple II, which was also in 1977. So this fear or this downplaying of computers or video games or whatever are a waste of time and just for entertainment is something that's very deeply rooted in society for some parts of the world or some parts of the society, you know.
The experience that I had, not only with video games, but my feeling also at work, I see that sometimes, is that people don't like changes. Some people don't like changes. Some people look bad at new things. They are scared, or they think that they are going to be replaced by the new machine. This is just not true. Or they prove themselves it's not true when they learn how to use a new tool. It's not, computer, for example, is nothing more than a new tool to making things better.
True. Yeah.
But people is scared about changes. I hope that I am alive to see this is a different perspective. But well, we are only humans.
Well, I guess with the new generation being brought up with computer, internet, and the global mind, this will all die out automatically, you know.
I'm sure that is, now that we are here sharing our deep feelings, it is something that I'm asking myself, probably you too. I'm sure quite a lot of people is also asking themselves. Now I was a kid having something new for my parents, and now I am a grown-up adult, at least on the outside. And I understand this thing that we were talking now. But what is the future going to bring us? Because I'm pretty sure that our kids, they are going to bring something to us that we are not easily understand, because it's maybe still not invented. But probably this cycle of life is continuing somehow. You know? And I'm somehow curious to see what the technology world is going to bring us that we cannot understand. Like nowadays, for example, when we try to, my daughter, for example, is teaching my mom, her grandmother, how the mobile phone, the cell phone is working. No?
Yeah.
What will I have in my hand or in my head or whatever when I will be an elder person, and my granddaughter is teaching me, no, let me teach you how this works.
Will that honestly, I'm not sure if that happens, because you work in IT, I work in IT too. And I was interviewing, well, elderly people like Chuck Peddle in his 80s, or Ralph Baer when he was 91. They all still used a smartphone or a tablet like anybody else, because they were always working with electronics and computers and IT, though they always learn new stuff. So perhaps it will be the same for you, and that you will always catch up at some point.
Time will tell.
You know.
Let's see.
You know?
Let's do one thing, Jörg. Let's put our agenda a reminder in 30 years to have another interview and say, okay, do you remember when you were younger that we were having this conversation regarding technology? In 30 years,
71. Oh my God.
I will be 80. No, almost 80. In
wow.
30 years.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
But it would be interesting, no, to make this kind of a time machine and recover this interview in, I don't know, 30 years.
Yeah.
And maybe we say, oh, we are used to the technology we have now, or can you believe that my granddaughter has to teach me how to use this new tool, whatever, something that is still not invented.
We will see. We'll see how it turns out. But I totally get what you'd say about your current, well, as I said, your daughter teaching your mother about smartphones. When my mom was forced to get a smartphone because her bank was telling her we are no longer support SMS 10 for transactions. She was like, what I'm going to do now that they don't send me SMS anymore because it's insecure. I'm like, yeah, well, change the bank or get a smartphone. She opted for smartphone. And this concept that your physical, the physical home phone can be an app on your smartphone, and you can take it with you and outside of your home and make a home phone call with the app on your smartphone, because for the phone provider, it doesn't matter if it's on a smartphone, if it's on a PC or an actual device. That was totally mind-blowing for her, you know?
Something came to my mind now that it's related to this thing that we are talking now, and we can bring it back to the console and video game thing.
Of course.
Maybe the technology leap is every time smaller. I was checking with this afternoon, a few hours before this interview that we are having now with my colleague Jordi. Jordi, un saludo. One presentation that he did regarding, it was very simple, but it was a curve about technology growing. It was talking about consoles, no? And the technology jump is flattening its curve. So the technology jump in 2 years, for example, in the case in that case was from the Sega Master System to the GameCube. If I am not to the Nintendo GameCube, if I am not mistaken, it was a leap of 16 years. Mm-hmm. And the technology leap is absolutely huge. It was already huge from the Mega Drive to the Super Nintendo, and it was only 2 years difference. Master System, 16 years to or 17, can't remember, but it's 1 year up, 1 year down. The technology jump was huge. The next jump, similar jump, it was to modern consoles, and the jump from the Nintendo GameCube to the modern consoles, it's a big jump, but it's not as big as it was before. So the technology curve is flattening quite quick, and now is new inventions and new. That's my feeling, of course. New things now, new ideas, new technology leaps are not as big as before. This curve is flattening.
Well,
quickly.
it also is because of firmware updates, I figured. I mean, the PC I'm using right now as my daily driver, a desktop PC, I built 11 years ago. And thanks to the firmware update ASUS provided 9 years ago, where I could upgrade from a 16 gigabyte of RAM to 32 gigabyte of RAM, DDR3 RAM, and going another processor generation, so AM3 plus in comparison to AM3, I actually could jump from a 6-core to an octa-core CPU, you know, because the difference between the AM3 socket and the AM3 plus socket is very small, so you could make an upgrade with a BIOS update and basically go to the next generation. And thanks to that, in 11 years, I could upgrade my PC rather than what I usually do, build a new one, you know. And I can still play AAA games with it, like the latest Need for Speed Carbon and stuff, you know. I'm like super impressed. I never thought that I would build a PC for myself lasting 11 years, you know.
That's a lot of time.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And it's actually so incredible that I had to exchange the BIOS CMOS battery 2 times already because it was not designed. It was not designed to last that long, you know.
I see. But if you, for example, think from the day you bought your computer 11 years ago, if you try to go 11 years back again, the computers back then, the difference is probably huge, much bigger than now. So.
Of course, yeah, of course. When even in 2 years, I remember my first PC I got as a child was a 386, and 2 years later I could play no recent games anymore. I had to buy a Pentium, you know. I had to buy a Pentium. Because I was 2 generations behind. So none of the games worked except one, and that was Symes the Sorcerer 2. That still worked. Awfully slow, but it worked. Symes Sorcerer 2. That still worked.
Okay.
Symes Sorcerer 2 from AdventureSoft. It was pretty famous in Europe. In Germany and UK especially. I don't know if it ever came across Spain pretty much.
The name didn't ring a bell now. Maybe if I see an image or something.
Well, let me show you an image, you know. It actually was released on the Amiga first. Let's see. Image. Yeah. So image, copy image, like this. You know.
Simon the Sorcerer.
Simon the Sorcerer, yes.
Now I understand. Sorry, it was my fault.
Or my pronunciation was bad.
Your pronunciation is great. Now I know which game you're talking about. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
Now all the audience is also searching on the internet for it. What game are those guys talking about?
Very sad, actually. The Symes Sorcerer Origin, which is done in Italy, just was delayed for another year. Oh my God, so sad. Well, that's it. Anyway, so that's my story about the smaller curve of improvement in the computer hardware world. I can still use my PC from 11 years ago.
And that's great.
Yeah. So, of course, meanwhile, I lost 2 power supplies as well.
Oops.
So you can clearly see they never designed the PC to last that long. So you have to replace things like the CMOS battery and power supplies. Yeah, it's super interesting. And of course, to exchange the battery, you have to take apart half of the computer because it's behind the PCI Express slot, and it's super inconvenient. Oh my god, it was like what a crap, you know.
Very entertaining. An afternoon of pulling out things.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And of course, the plastic of the PCI Express slot to keep the graphics card in place broke off. Like super amazing, because it's not designed to be removed so often and pulled so often. So, wow.
But you managed.
Yeah, and of course I lost some SATA cables as well, some SATA data cables. So you can clearly see how PCs were not designed to last 11 years. So there's always something that breaks after a little while. And you never had this problem in the past because you always build a new machine, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yes, because you were not changing the computer because of the CMOS battery. You were changing because of the performance or
exactly.
non-upgradability.
Exactly. And now with Windows 11 2 years ago, I simply installed a patched version, so I don't have to meet the requirements of TPM 2.0 and stuff, you know. So like, whoa, why should I care about that if there's a workaround, you know? But that is of course new IT nerd stuff, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Same at work. Now they want to replace my 9 years old Lenovo laptop.
Okay.
And I'm like, no! But Windows 11 is coming around and Windows 10 is going end of service, so you have to get a new laptop. I'm like, no! And I'm the only one in the whole company of 100 people or something that still has the original laptop they handed out 9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just me. I'm hanging on the old
protected
stuff.
with your life.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an IT expert. Why would I not take care about of it? You know, and other people drop their laptops or put the cables in the wrong connector, and then it sparkles a bit, and you know that's how other people take care of
a bit
their
of
laptop.
smoke, but
nah. Well, I actually heard a story. I actually heard a story of an IT guy that he had to use gloves because the laptop that was returned from one coworker was so filthy with dirt and stuff he wouldn't dare to touch it. I'm like, oh my god.
Okay.
Oh my god, yeah. Or if you ever have pulled a PC, a desktop PC from certain environments where you have dust coming out in layers, thick dust from production units, like wow, like super, you know, super amazing. I'm sure you already saw things where like, how is this fan even spinning still, you know?
Yeah.
So
there's some but I'm lucky enough because normally my environment is needed to be clean, but I had where dirtiness was really a problem.
Yeah,
but that's another story.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about what's your plan moving ahead. Do you have some future plans that they can talk about? I mean, you wanted to show me your progress of your game, right? We should do that, perhaps.
I thought it was going to be interesting because maybe you remember that when we spoke in 2021 regarding the Coloco ZX Spectrum version, that we were converting it to the Sega Mega Drive console. I remember that I briefly show you our first baby steps on the game.
Yeah, you did.
We already had, yeah, And now it's been 2 years after that, and the game looks really, really different than it looked back then. And I thought it was a nice experiment to show you and of course everyone here the jump that it's happening between all this time.
Sure.
Will be also a nice experiment maybe for all the viewers here. Hello everyone, if you are still here after a nice while of chatting. Will be a nice experiment that people goes back to that video and check the status of the game back then.
Oh yes, I will link to the panel so people can actually check out what was happening back then.
I remember that we still had a temporary design for the ship that you manage on the game, and we were starting to flirt about new backgrounds, and we were starting to mount all this Mega Drive version. For people that doesn't know about the story, as I mentioned a couple of times already, we made a Spectrum game called Coloco, and we had the idea to bring this game to the Mega Drive. Then we spent some time building the engine for the game to be run, and we exactly copied the game as it was in Spectrum to the Mega Drive, adding scroll, because on the Spectrum version there is no scroll. It's screen by screen, and we added scroll, and basically it was more or less the only addition. But then we realized, oh my God, we've got something here interesting. We've got a 16-bit machine that we are not getting profit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's expand this game. Let's add some new mechanics. Let's add some 16-bit graphics. Let's put in some nice music. Let's do a deluxe version for it. And that's what we wrote a game, new game, but we still kept those 30 stages in the Mega Drive game, so you can play the original levels, let's say, and we are adding some more levels. We are now in the process of filling up content of the game. So basically, the engine and the core of the game is finished, and we are basically adding content. As for today, 28th of March, no, 29th, sorry, of March of 2023, I started developing the 20th level for the Mega Drive version.
Wow.
That it means so we are planning every world as 10 levels. This is the last stage for the second world, and normally we are making something special for the last levels. Not exactly a boss, or maybe yes.
I also saw from the screenshots you removed the color clash from the Spectrum, so it has clean
yes.
color areas.
Yeah. Maybe it was more difficult to keep the color clash than to remove it. But anyway, for the way that the Spectrum version was built, the color clash was not too heavy. I don't know if you tried. I would like to encourage people seeing this video that go to our web page, if you are so kind afterwards, to add our address, Tuxedo.
Sure.
Address to there, so they can try a couple of our games there. We are adding games as soon as they are released, or let's say after the life cycle of them. But you can try there the version, the Spectrum version. You can try also there the Chainbreak game. You can download the Game Boy version there, and there is also a Master System game called Gotris. That it was a secret game that we added, that the Blaze people added to the Indie Heroes Collection cartridge. It was like a secret game you can unlock, and
okay.
you can also play it there. You can download it from our website. So maybe it's a good time now for me to show you how
Totally excited for it. Like. Of course, of course.
Let's see if I can.
I'm super happy that your page is in English now. Wow, it's making so much. It's making things so much easier. Pencil Biter. That's a nice name.
I wonder if you're seeing now something.
Yes, yes, I see the title screen with some nice fluid animations.
Music is a bit loud for me to understand you now. I don't know if I can remove it or.
Yeah, we don't hear the sound anyway.
You don't hear the sound anyway.
No,
you only can see. Oh, that's a pity.
I don't know. Are you on a Mac or on a Windows machine?
Windows machine.
Okay, if you start sharing the screen, you actually please disable share screen function. I will show you how to enable sound sharing. Right. So if you disable the screen share,
which I already did.
Yes, and you click on share screen again.
Technical problems.
Oh, no problem. It will edit this out anyway. So if you click on share screen again, there is a slider on the very top saying share computer sound. Yeah.
But I wanted to share the sound. I think I won't hear you because it's playing a bit loud, but the music is great.
Oh, so, I don't know. Actually, never tried sharing sound. This is actually like a new feature from 2 years ago. Never did it with somebody.
Okay.
We'll try and go and see how it goes.
Okay. Let's try. Now I'm sharing content again.
Okay, I'm not here. Oh, now I hear the sound.
Yes, can you hear it? I wanted you to hear it because the music is just great.
Awesome.
And we even had a little bit of a musical direction here in this very. Okay, so if you go with the B button, you can see.
Okay, now it's briefly. Now with the digital guitar, it was too loud to understand you. I don't know if you can make the game a bit more silent.
I don't think so. I can disable sound.
Okay, but you don't have a volume slider in the game. Okay, I see.
No, I don't. Sorry. Sorry for that.
No problem.
It's a pity because the music is fantastic.
Well, we heard the music, but we didn't hear you. What you explained during.
But you heard me for a couple of hours already.
True. So perhaps you can repeat what you said when the guitar was playing.
I can't remember exactly what I was saying, but probably I was saying that this is how the game is looking on the Spectrum version. Just brought out directly from the machine. The only thing I won't spend much time on this because the changes are coming on the other version. But I at least wanted to show you that there is a scroll instead of a Spectrum version that it's only going screen by screen. There is not much more. Well, there is 30 levels, so it's the whole game you can play. But this is a version that I think that I already showed you in the last video. So let's go for a change to the actual Mega Drive version. That it's now looking like this. Would be a nice exercise if people rescues the older video to compare. So the aim is exactly the same as in the Spectrum version. So you have to fly to the platform, rescue the guy, and bring it back to the base. So the game is about one pilot that crashes their ship somewhere lost in a cavern, and then the environment is changing in the next world. Next worlds are going to have different environments. But the idea is basically the same. It's a pity you can't hear the music. If you don't mind, after I'm rescuing this guy, I will switch the sound on for a couple of levels, so you can hear it. Before doing that, well, you will see there is some new mechanics also in a couple of levels. You need to get your way. To bring some work to the. You're getting messages. Also differently, like in the Spectrum version, if you go to a platform, it works as a.
Unfortunately, I can't hear you because the music is so loud. But
okay, what a pity. I was telling you that in comparison with the Spectrum version, if you go to a platform, it works as a checkpoint now. So it's a bit more fair.
It feels a bit like Space Taxi.
Some people told me already. There is also people comparing it to Subterranea.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
But the funny thing about it all is that I didn't know Subterranea game until people told me, okay, this game looks like Subterranea. But it was very funny because I didn't know the game. I only checked it afterwards.
What I also find interesting is this digital guitar, because a year ago or so, I saw a YouTube video where somebody was explaining that back in 1988 and a few years after, when the Mega Drive was released, most coders didn't know how to make digital samples play correctly, so they played in inefficient quality than what the Mega Drive is capable of. But I can hear when you shared the music that the digital sample guitar sounded very clear compared to what I'm used to original Mega Drive games.
It happens that our musician and the guy who takes care about the sounds, he's a genius.
Okay.
He's great, not only on the sounds, but also on the compositions, on the quality of the music itself. He's a musician also. We couldn't hear it, but at the beginning of the first level, on the first world of this Mega Drive version, you can hear also voice samples, and we are probably adding more of those samples.
Awesome.
Now you saw that there is a barrier here. This is a new mechanic that didn't exist on the Spectrum version. And I cannot pass. So I have to get this drill, get some batteries for the drill, and then I have to drill the rocks away to be able to.
Feels a bit like Lemmings, where you had the digger digging holes into walls so the lemmings can pass. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough.
It's interesting. Well, you mentioned it. You have a good programmer and a good musician, but I guess also back then, those people didn't know better. They had to go by what they know from the original documentation and from learning by mistake. You know.
Yes, we are learning a lot by mistake because we don't have official programming tools from Sega, of course, that probably people had back in the 80s and the 90s. We only have patience, passion, and perseverance to try things. So I always say, I don't know if I am right or not, but I always say that we have. Oh, damn! I died on my own game. We have better tools for drawing, probably. We have worse tools for programming on the machine. Of course, we have nice programming tools like VS Code and people building libraries, especially for the Mega Drive and all these things. But we are lacking these official testing machines or documentation, all these kinds of things. I was wondering, maybe for not making this even longer, but I want to show you how different looks the second world. And
of course,
I,
but
and
let
I
me
also,
ask you. Let me ask you:
of
are you
course,
actually planning, or can I still play the original levels? I mean, you said yes, obviously, but
yes,
in the same look,
in the
or
same, sorry?
in the same look as the Spectrum?
No.
Oh,
So
okay.
the spectrum levels are those levels with that look.
Ah.
Sorry, and this you cannot play these levels on that look or that levels on this look. So
Too
it's
bad.
like
Too
two
bad. Okay.
separate. We
Okay.
could do that.
Okay.
We could do that. We are also working. Well, to be honest, is the basically finished an Amstrad CPC version for the Coloco that it's going to be released physically in the next weeks, months,
Wow. Okay.
very soon, and it's looking a bit different. We are considering about adding that look also to this version. Let's see.
Well, I found this look very interesting to have a Spectrum-looking game on a Mega Drive. So I always found this very interesting. Because,
Yeah,
as you mentioned, on the Spectrum itself, you never had this clean look in the colors. So this is why I
yes.
found it interesting. Yeah.
But what we realized, I stopped sharing screen, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't.
Well, you did, because I don't see it anymore.
Okay. Let me now share also the screen of how does the World 2 looks like. But what we found is that as we translated the game directly from the Spectrum to the Mega Drive, it was too simple. It did look too simple. It plays too simple, and we could did better. And that's what we are doing now.
And now I understand what you mean, that the game looks so much different from what you showed us 2 years ago. Now I totally get it. Okay. You know, that is how games back then were usually converted when companies were cheap. For example, Karnov on the C64 is a 100% copy of the ZX Spectrum release. That is why it has the same color palette and the same look, and even the same awful frame rate. Yeah.
Well, the Spectrum was a machine that it was not built for games, or even Sir Clive Sinclair always. Maybe the commercial success of the machine did change his mind, but he always said that it was not a machine built for games, but it was the games who bring popularity to this machine.
Exactly. And games like Street Fighter 2 were pretty impressive, thought to be impossible on the ZX Spectrum. So.
Can you see the screen again?
Yep. Yes. Level 2.
So
I love the backgrounds.
2. Yeah.
I love the.
Thank you very much. Who are you? So now basically there is new traps, let's say, among the worlds, and now we have lasers, these laser barriers that we are. This is just for you to learn, let's say, how the laser barriers work, but they are going to get, of course, more and more complicated. Synchronization between them, making like a one-way valve where you can just go one way. Labyrinths.
Not bad.
We are just adding some, new things to the game.
To me, it looks of course. To me, it looks so much like Space Taxi. I would imagine somebody like, "Hey, taxi, go up, please." Thanks.
Is that good or bad?
Well, it's good. It's good because because Space Taxi is remembered still to be a very nice game, and I would totally buy this game on the Mega Drive because I really enjoy such games, to be honest. Yeah. But I fear I'm not such a good player as you are in this demonstration,
Yeah, but it's not fair because I did the game and
right.
I am still dying.
Yes, but you are also multitasking,
Very
talking
true.
to me.
So, yes. And speaking not in my mother language.
Ooh, yeah, you see.
I would like to advance a couple more levels, if that's okay for you.
Sure. Well,
because
I have all the time. The question is, how much can your stomach handle without eating dinner?
well, no today. But another thing that we are adding to every world is a new tool. So you saw in the first world that you had a drill where you can drill walls to pass. But now we don't have a drill. We have a different tool. And the plan is to have a different tool on every world, in every different world, doing different things. In this case, well, let's not make a spoiler. Let's try it. It's there. Oh.
It's interesting because to me it feels so much like a Super Nintendo release, you know, colorful background, super smooth animations, super.
Thank you very much.
Super digital samples, as we heard with the guitar sound. That's all like the Mega Drive, the Super Nintendo was known for, and the Mega Drive was lackluster. For example, Rock and Roll Racing. I remember on the Super Nintendo we had the commentator with speech and stuff, you know, and everything. And on the Mega Drive, the music always went silent when he spoke, because the coder couldn't manage the resources well, and they didn't have the knowledge how to play music, commentary, and all that at the same time.
Handling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so
the thing is that for good or for worse, I've been making graphics for the Mega Drive since a lot of years now, and I think that I already have the hang of it.
Now the question is, the Mega Drive has one issue. You probably heard of that. There's certain versions, certain revisions of the second release of the Mega Drive has switched sound channels.
Okay, I never heard about that before, but I will get myself informed, because these things that you were completely unnoticed when you didn't really know back in the 90s. Nowadays, you know how people is, and it can bring you a problem that it's not working on my machine.
Yeah,
I am really
sounding
tempted.
odd. It's sounding odd. Yeah.
My game is you are not a good programmer because this, you know. And I am really tempted to say, okay, so we tested this game on these and these and these models for the Mega Drive, and then you get, okay, this is something that it's a little bit out of our control. If we were working for Sega in 1989, for example, maybe saying, bring me 20 consoles for the 20 models that they had for me to test the game. But I only have 2 Mega Drives, and one of them broke the last week. Then I can try a certain models between me and my friends or my colleagues or people who is interested in helping.
But
we can try certain modes.
Nowadays you have emulators where you can replicate the. That's the difference between the 80s.
Very true also, yes. And
I will send you some links. I will send you some links so you can inform yourself about it, you know.
Now I'm cheating a little bit because I'm using this Kega Fusion emulator that is pretty well known, but it's not very demanding on the hardware. But we are normally for our testing, for our bug fixing, game testing procedures daily, we are using an emulator called Blastem. And Blastem is such a great emulator that it's very true to the machine. It's even emulating sprite limits, address errors. It's behaving like almost the very same machine. Here, for example, in the Fusion, you can trick a little bit, or you can not discover the limits.
Now the question is, are you making it compatible to the NTSC release of the Mega Drive, which is called Genesis in America?
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully, yes. I found it, the most impressive I found was Batman on the Mega Drive, because I have a switchable Mega Drive, because on the Mega Drive you can simply bridge some circuits with a wire, and then you can switch it between America, Europe, and the Japanese char set. And
exactly.
And with Batman, you can have the Batman cartridge running in the machine, and you can switch on the fly between NTSC and PAL, and you can listen how the music instantly slows down or speeds up depending on what model you have. So I was like, oh my God, those coders back in 1988, they really thought about everything when they started working on the Batman game, you know?
By the way, I also have these switches on my broken Mega Drive back there. But we went to a show a few days ago, and one of the connectors broke, and half of the connector is still inside there. Let's see.
Hopefully, you can find somebody to repair it for you.
I will try to do it myself.
You are not left-handed. Not
yes.
You don't have two. You don't. I mean, you don't have two left hands, right? That's what I mean.
No, I only have one left hand. I stopped the game here for you to see that the new tool and the new mechanics on this world is a door, which you cannot pass.
Okay.
And you have to hack it with a hacking tool.
Wow.
That's this tool here.
And it says "save me," so he's very desperate.
We should add some sounds like the guy is telling, "I am here. Please save me. Please help me."
Amazing. Yeah.
We need to hack this door. First of all, I have no battery for it. For the tool.
Okay, so you have to collect the battery again. Okay.
You can go up, and you find one of those examples of synchronized laser barriers that I told you before. I'm running out of fuel, by the way. Just showing things, and I cannot go there in that direction. Then I learned that some fuel. That's great.
Because of the pattern of the barriers, I see.
Now I can go this direction, but not going backwards.
So you have to go clockwise.
Exactly. This is game design.
Strategy.
This is also a tool for me as a game designer to force the player to follow certain paths.
Well, I have to apologize. You know, for a living, I'm a tester for Medical Software. So I always concern about what about the sound channel differences of the different revisions of the hardware and stuff. I'm very concerned about those differences, because you never know what revision the person will have at home trying to play this on, you know. So, yeah. And people are not going to rewire their consoles just to make the sound play correctly, you know.
Yes, very true.
So that's it, you know.
I will inform myself about that. It's a nice tip. Thank you, Jörg.
Oh, well, I mean, there are plenty of versions of the Mega Drive. You probably know in Brazil they are still making new revisions of the hardware.
Yeah. It's amazing how they are still keeping the market, no?
So yeah.
So you saw here that I use the tool to hit it with the right color that the door is showing, or else you won't get it open. So you need to, with the B button, you need to switch the tool color to match the door's color, and then you're getting some new enemies. And maybe I stop here for not spoil the levels.
I'm still impressed how well the screen sharing works for things like games. Amazing.
Well, of course, I'm here playing on my own screen, and I don't really. I don't really realize how are you feeling the game there in the other side of the screen.
Totally fluent, totally amazing.
Now in this case, we have 2 doors, one for getting out of this, because as you saw, there is no way back for in this vertical corridor. Oops. I was looking in another direction. And there is one more door to the pilot that you need to rescue. And if you hit the door with the wrong color, nothing happens except you're wasting your battery on your tool.
Oh.
But if I hit it, then I can make it open.
Interesting.
That's our new mechanics for the game.
Go back to base. Yeah.
Go back to base. Yeah, let's finish the level so we are not leaving things half done.
Now you only need some digital samples of the guy screaming at you. Help me! Help me! Go back to base and stuff.
We need. It would be a nice addition. Yeah. And the level should be done. Good work. We've got a fanfare here when we are finishing the level.
Awesome. Really amazing. So this is coming out this year, right?
That was my plan.
Okay.
But also it was my plan to have the second world finished by February. And we are finishing March, and hopefully I will finish it this month. So, it's very difficult for us, people who make homebrew, to say, yes, this is going to be finished on this month or this day, because we are depending on our spare time. We cannot say that we are spending 8 hours every day working on the game. We have arbitrary time free when we have it.
Will you make physical releases of the game as a cartridge?
The physical release is always the aim for this.
I hope you will sell one to Germany, so I will definitely buy one if it's happening.
Of course. And by the way, I would love to go to the Gamescom convention in summer. If the game's finished, I will do my best to go to the Gamescom.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, even if the game isn't finished, you should come to Gamescom. I will be there as an exhibitor with our Discmag. So I already booked my train in 2 weeks ago. So I'm definitely going, because I booked a cheap train that I can't cancel. So I'm definitely going. So if you come, we certainly have to meet up in person. And
of course, count on it.
Will you run a booth, or will you just be a visitor? What is your plan if you attend to Gamescom?
If I the only time that I've been there, I was with you virtually, but the time that I was there physically, I went to a booth. It was not only me; it was a shop called Retro Spiel. Sorry for my German.
Okay. Yeah, the Retro Spiel, the physical store. Yeah, the retro store from Cologne, actually. They have a physical store in the city.
Exactly. I've got a colleague, very, very good colleague, also part of a team. He was working there some years ago, and he still keeps some connection with Chris, the guy who runs the shop. Awesome. And I remember that when I was there, I think it was 2017. It was super fun because I was giving the finishing touches to Chainbreak, the game for the Game Boy, who came later on to the Evercade. And I was polishing levels, and it was mostly done. And people was playing there, and I brought a little laptop computer with me, and I was correcting levels and reacting to the people, how people live there. So people was playing, I would like this to be a bit longer, or this chapter is impossible. Let me correct it. And I corrected it there live, and then I burned a new ROM into the cartridge, and can you please try again? Oh, this is awesome. And it was a very, very refreshing and interesting experience.
On-hands feedback. You can't get better than this.
Yeah, on-hands feedback and on-hands fixing. And if Coloco DX, this deluxe version that we are working now, is nearly completed, or even better, is complete, it would be great to bring it there to the booth, because Chris in the Retro Spiel, is that correct?
Yeah.
In this booth, he's normally bringing some machines for homebrew people. He's always very, very fond of it, and I thank you, Chris, if you are seeing this, for your help during the years and hopefully in the future too.
That means I could save on shipping.
Sorry?
I could save on shipping.
Very true.
Yeah, if you bring it with you, I could
I can
buy
bring
it off your hands.
Still warm, freshly constructed, freshly built.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully it has no metal plate in it like Peprium that rattles around and has to be removed first. That was like a nightmare. Like, what? It rattles inside the cartridge. What happened there? You know. Oh.
Okay, let's see. let's first finish the game. Sure. Because I never want to. I've been, as I told you before, I've been in too many unreleased projects.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
I learned from that, and let's first finish the game,
awesome.
And then we are thinking about physical versions. But we are of course delivering a physical version of it.
You have still 5 months time, so almost half a year.
That's more or less the time I need to finish the game, because there is still a lot of content to be built.
You see,
it's a bit short in time to have a physical version ready for then. But let's try. Why not?
All right. So where can people find your stuff?
Basically, what we mentioned before on our webpage. And I would like people also to encourage to follow our Twitter account, where we are putting there our news. We like to put there every week or every 2 weeks, more or less, one tweet about the new contents of the game, or our new things that happens for we are going to this show, or we are releasing whatever. For example, we announced 3 weeks ago, I think it was, we were to a show in Barcelona where my Mega Drive got broken. Yeah, shit. But it was also a nice experience, because our aim there, you can find a tweet if you want, was to build a level from this world to Coloco live there with the inputs of the people. And that's what we did. And you can see the finished level that we built there live on one of the most recent tweets on this the Tuxedo Game dev account on Twitter.
So basically the same name that you have for your homepage URL, which is also tuxedogamesdev.com.
Exactly. I've got also a personal Twitter account, but this one's not as interesting. The good one is the one that we are using for the news about the games.
I will put that all also in the podcast description, in the link list, so it will be all there.
Great.
Awesome.
Then, thanks for everything.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure. My apologies for being so delayed.
All good.
If you need anything, here I am.
Okay, perfect.
Have a nice time. Thank you, Jörg.
Thank you. Bye. You too. Bye-bye.